Hey guys, it's me, Makai. Welcome back to my channel. And today's topic, I will be talking about speaking in tongues. So, this is how I found out the speaking in tongues and the Babblish that some of the prophets do is not really speaking in tongues. That's not really the gift of tongues. Um, the I don't know what type of language or what you would call that, but it's not speaking in tongues. It's not the gift of tongues. Speaking in tongues, the biblical, godly way is um, just speaking in different languages. The Holy Spirit gives us the gift of speaking in tongues when we need help ministering the word across to somebody. So if like somebody who speaks in different language than I do, and I came across them, and it was God's will for them to get the word that the Holy Spirit was dropping in on me, then I would be able to, get that gift of speaking in tongues, which is speaking in another language, to be able to spread the message to the other lady, the lady in the other um, language. Um, and also the gift of interpretation of tongues is just being able to understand what the prophet or whoever is speaking the message of God, being able to understand their language. So let's say I speak English, but there was a prophet that was speaking in Spanish, and I came across him, and it was God's will for me to get that message. Then the gift of the Holy Spirit would come upon me and allow me to understand, interpret the tongue, the language that was being spoken. So um, that's what the gift of speaking in tongues is. And if you look up, tongue means a language. And a language is something that we communicate. It's like dialogue. So language is something that we use to communicate. Um, so that's what speaking in tongues is. It's just you're able to speak in different language when the Holy Spirit gives you that gift and prompts you to speak. Then you'll be able to speak in whatever language is needed to be um, a, to get across that message to whoever is listening in whatever language they speak. Um, we have a welcome guest here. Say hey. Say hey. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, speaking in tongues is just being able to speak in a different language to whoever the message needs to get across to. And that's what gifts of the Holy Spirit are. Gifts of the Holy Spirit is there to help us minister to people, help us to spread the word. That's why we have those gifts, is because they are there to help us. Now, it's not, yes, we can control how we use these gifts, but it's up to the Holy Spirit and God to minister the gifts to us. So, I mean, once again, it comes, speaking in tongues only comes into play really when, biblical point of view, is when, you need to get a message across to somebody who is not speaking in the language that you speak. Or it could be the other way around, and God can give them the Holy Spirit and allow them to understand what you're speaking in your language. And we can go to Acts 2, 2 to 8. That's an example how they use how the Holy Spirit allows them to speak utterance, and they understood each language that was being spoken in their own native language, because the Holy Spirit came upon them and allowed them to understand and hear, what was being said in their own native language. And then 1 Corinthians 14, all of that chapter speaks about the gift of tongues and how to use it and how to properly use it and this and that. And it was saying how, if God's not the author of confusion, that's where that verse comes in. God's not the author of confusion. So that's why he he tells us, like, if there's somebody speaking in tongues, quote unquote, there needs to be interpretation there. Somebody needs to be able to interpret it, because if we go into somewhere and we're listening to somebody speak in tongues, whatever language that is, and we're not understanding, then how are we supposed to know what is being said? We don't really know. That's so God is not the author of confusion. One thing he will make is you will be able to understand. God is of understanding. So if you go into a place and you're not understanding what they're saying, then it's not God speaking. So 1 Corinthians 14, all of that chapter speaks on how the gifts of the Holy Spirit work, and how the speaking in tongues works and how we should use it, and so on and so forth. So and my little testimony behind that is the reason how I found out that speaking in tongues, what they do today, that hashabadaba, hashabadaba, that type of thing, how I found out that that wasn't speaking in tongues, the gift of speaking in tongues, because I used to watch people who used to do that, speak gibber jabberish, I don't know what you would call it, but they would speak in that language saying they were speaking on behalf of God. And so I just kept desiring it, and I was asking God if he could teach me it. And he told me that it wasn't of him. He told me no, that wasn't of him, and it was demonic. And so he took me down the rabbit hole of what it actually means, what speaking in tongues actually means, and how it was used. And so that's how that happened. How I found out that speaking in tongues is not the other speaking in tongues, the gibber jabberish, the repetitive babble that they do. That's not speaking in tongues. And if you look in the Bible, because I always wondered in the back of my head, there was this verse that came up, or a couple of verses that always would come in the back of my head, like, because God talks about repeating yourself and babble, and that's what kind of like they do. They repeat themselves and they babble on the message that is being spoken. So, and God says that's ungodly, to repeat, to be repetitive in prayer, and to babble on. So there goes that. Like, if you're over here babbling on and stuff, sorry, she's really okay. We will get that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye bye.